That's the greatest block ever. So you want to ride that wave.
Yeah.
Them shits was terrible, Wob. Them uniforms got to be top 5 worst uniforms ever. And to make me want to holler, you already know what it is. Back in effect again, yo, again.
Even before we begin the program, Sheet has a little bit of beef with me. Can we sort this out now that we're on camera?
Hey,
you go first.
Look, I know y'all got to agree with me out there. Now, it's nothing against the actual team itself, y'all, but damn, that got to be the ugliest uniform, green teal uniforms ever in history that he got on right there that year the Pistons were. I think it was what, like Grant Hill and Jerry Stackhouse, like in that era. Them shits was terrible, Wob. Hey, them uniforms got to be top 5 worst uniforms ever.
Why do you think this is a bad looking logo? Look how badass that's a horse that is descending like a rider of the apocalypse, Sheet.
Right. But look, and he got the little pipes on there and everything. I didn't say the logo. The logo was cool. I'm just talking about the color of them uniforms. Them shits was terrible. They look like that year the same. You know who else had some terrible? I guess they were teal or almost teal. The fucking Panthers. When they first came out, them shits was terrible. Them shits is just a terrible color for a uniform, if you ask me.
Wow, we have an anti-teal member in the audience. The teal is very polarizing. You either love it or you hate it. I am team teal all the way, mainly because of the logo. I'll give it to you that the teal itself, we're also Carolina guys. This is almost Carolina blue too. So it's a cousin of the Carolina blue.
It's like a third or fourth cousin or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's part of the mother's, father's, brother's, uncle, sister's, cousin's, sister's, dad's side.
This means a lot coming from you because you're an all-time Pistons great. So if you are team anti-teal, is it because the Pistons traditional red and blue is just such a legacy classic logo? It's one of those things, if it's not broken, don't fix it? Or do you just genuinely not like the color teal?
Nah, I think it's just that color. You know, that logo, like I said, that logo you got on right there is dope. I mess with it. I'm just thankful to the Most High that during my tenure with the Pistons, they didn't want to go retro night and wear them shits because them uniforms. It's just the teal. I like the logo. The logo's cool, but it's just the color, bro. I can't fuck with it.
All right.
It don't look good on a uniform.
There's a reason why they've gone back to the traditional royal blue in the arrest me red, if you will, because the bad boys, they wore the royal blue and the arrest me red, and then they pivoted to teal for a couple of years. And I'm usually I am team, like if you have a traditional franchise like the Pistons do, the Knicks, the Celtics, the Lakers, the Bulls, you stick with those jerseys, that style, that logo, and you don't mess with it. But I'm a sucker for teal, and I can't believe this is the first thing that I think we found that we legitimately are going to entrench ourselves and disagree on. Because the teal with the trim, with this maroon and orange, plus the logo, it worked for me. It worked. It was a different era. And it was like when the Wizards, man, when they went to the whole Gilbert Arenas navy blue with the gold trim instead of the red, white, and blue bullets colors.
And it had, I think, like almost the whole with the DC Capitol like background on it or some shit like that. Yeah, they were terrible too.
Okay, so I think I know the answer. Yeah, well, I think I know the answer to this question, but the Seattle Sonics, did you hate when they went to the cartoon skyline instead of the original, the Sean Kemp skyline? Because when they made the finals with Gary Payton, remember they had that different logo that looked like something off Nickelodeon? Some people really despise that, and that lined up perfectly with when the Pistons went teal. Are you just that whole like 5 years where the NBA tried something different? It sounds like you're just go back to it.
For some teams it worked. For some teams it worked. For some teams it didn't. You know, it's I guess it's just a uniform combination. Like San Antonio would be killer in like a all black uniform with just like maybe just their logo or just their name. and everything else on there is jet black, you know what I'm saying? Because their colors, would match that. Certain colors go good for certain teams.
Well, now that you mentioned the Spurs, they did have the Fiesta uniforms when they played on that Fiesta court when David Robinson was there in the mid-90s. That had a whole bunch of teal in the Spur logo as opposed to just the silver and black. Oh, you hated that too. All right. At least you're consistent. I'll give you that much. But we could turn this whole episode into critiquing logos. I'm going to stick with the teal for now. I'm going to stand in the teal corner. I love a good throwback. But let's go back to a moment in time. And Sheed was just talking about the early 2000s here. Every episode, I like to take Sheed back and have him guess as to what occurred in the life of Rasheed Wallace on this day. And today's date, Sheed, is May 24th, 2004. Again, this one should be obvious once you put the date together.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so
but
it's.
Let me see. I'm trying to think. You said the 24th May, so I'm trying to think the game. So that's May 24th. That might be.
What about the opponent?
Opponent. It's either the Pacers or.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, so we've got two videos to show you today, the first of which is only 30 seconds long, but you're walking through the halls. Can we hit play on this? There's going to be some audio. You make a little bit of a guarantee.
Determined to bolster the Pistons' confidence, Rasheed Wallace issued a bold proclamation prior to Game 2.
Y'all put it in the front page, back page, middle page, wherever. Headliners, column 1 or 2. We will win Game 2. Back it off. We will win Game 2.
Everyone probably thought that.
So there's the guarantee.
Mike James.
Say it. And so he was able, I believe he was able to say what everyone was thinking.
And then the second video we're going to show you is the game itself. You guarantee victory against the Pacers in Game 2 of the conference finals, and you get a victory. But I had to single this particular game out, Sheed, because the final score was 72-67. That is a halftime score in today's game. Y'all locked down defensively, 72-67. Ugly game, but it comes out a W. And take me through as we're going to run the highlights here. Not a whole lot of scoring, but you made the guarantee. What was the game plan coming into this? Because y'all were down 1-0.
Well, we knew that we could get them. The first game, we felt as though, and I'm not taking nothing away from them. They did play a good game. But we knew that, okay, we could. It was maybe a bucket or two that swayed the difference in that game. So we was like, all right, we know we could get these cats. And that's just the way that we felt. We all felt that going into the locker room after, we had our post-game meeting and everything. We knew we went over a few things right then and there where we weren't wrong. Cats took blame for, the shit that they did. So, and we went on to the next one. So I had that confidence with it. And then the thing about it, I didn't even say nothing to them. It wasn't like I planned that. I didn't plan it. I just had the confidence and knew, like, yo, like, man, yeah, we're going to get this game right here. I already know. I felt it. It was something I just felt. I didn't plan it. I wasn't the night before, like, yo, wait till y'all see me the second game when the media come out, watch what I say. No, it was just something I felt. And I was like, yo, yeah, I guarantee we're going to get Game 2. I know it, and I felt it. And of course, again, as I said, it was just a matter of a couple of possessions between either side. Like that Game 1, they had, better possessions. They came up with it more. Game 2, that's when we had it more. But hey, we came out there and we did the damn thing. Everybody just put our head down and we went to work. There was no complaining. There was nobody in that locker room that said to me, "She, why you say that dumb shit?" Nobody in the front office said to me, "She, why you say that dumb shit?" No, it was. We all felt it, man. I guess that's the best way for me to describe that. For that second game, for that series, we all felt it.
In elevator pitch, because we could turn an entire episode into this if we wanted. Again, the final score here is 72-67. They just showed a graphic where the leading scorer was Mehmet Okur in the second quarter with 5 total points. You guys got to 10 points with just a couple of seconds left in the first. Why are the scores so low? Because y'all are talented basketball players. We're watching highlights of Jermaine O'Neal, yourself, Chauncey Billups. There's some Hall of Famers out here. And it couldn't have been that much better defense? Was the game officiated differently? The styles, are y'all just trying to barrel through each other at the paint? Or is the defense really that entrenched? Because there's a wide open Reggie Miller 3 right there. We see that in today's game. What on earth could possibly keep this 72-67?
I think what it was, we valued possessions more. You know, it's playoff time. It wasn't a whole lot of. I think I mentioned this a few shows ago. Valuing the ball more. You got to take come playoff time. Your turnovers, everything that's negative, you got to take it down. So like again, if you averaging like as a team, if you averaging 10 or 12 turnovers, okay, come playoff time, that shit got to be like 6 turnovers, anywhere no higher than 8. You know what I'm saying? Because again, as I just mentioned a second ago, that was the key difference in the game. It was a turnover here or there, or you know maybe a bad shot that we might have took that they capitalized on the fast break points and all of that. So a couple of possessions was the difference in that game, man. But it was a doozy, though. I'll tell you that much. It was a doozy. And then the thing I like about it as well, one, as I said, everybody, you know, we valued the ball different. And then two, at least for this Pistons team, everybody contributed. Everybody contributed. You know, and their main guys was Jermaine and Reggie. We knew that. But who was our main guys? Shit, it was like everybody. You know what I'm saying? So it was that team effort. As I said, for that second game, we felt it, man. And they came through with the guarantee.
The guaranteed game here in game 2. They just showed a graphic that the Pistons had, I think, 19 bench points, and you had 30 total points for the game. So talking about getting everyone involved, that to say the least. You got Mehmet Okur out there leading scoring. Here comes Chauncey down the paint, dishing. I mean, it all looks so easy. And then I keep looking at this damn scoreboard, and it's 37-39 here going into halftime. A whole bunch of dumping the ball down in the block, a half-court set. Haven't seen a whole lot of fast breaks. So I think the pace of the game, as well as valuing the ball and a turnover and how valuable points were because they were hard to come by. These are some tough shots, man. Reggie Miller, I mean, he made that look easy, but if you got to live if you got to live like that, man, that's a tough way. But the Pistons are going to force you into this rock fight style half court set, and it's ultimately why the defense ended up being. It's now in 2023, a better offense is always going to beat good defense. But back then, I can't necessarily agree with that because of where the evolution of the game was at the time.
Here we have it. We got it's right here. You got the first 8 guys that coach pulled off the bench. We all are in sync. The first 8 guys. No, it's like, okay, if I come out and here comes Corliss. You seen Corliss getting some buckets. Boom. If Ben come out, then here comes Mehmet. Then you know you see Mehmet getting buckets. Then Big Eldon Campbell. You know what I'm saying? Everybody like our first 8 guys, we were all in tune. So and then you know we were out there talking, so it was no mistakes, with nothing for us on defense, and that's what we hung our hat on. Like Lindsey coming off of that bench, he was our guard. Him and Mike James, it was like, damn, who will bring the ball up between them two? You know what I'm saying? That's a whole lot of just them two. They could do their own press, and it's a whole lot of they got to toss the ball up. But man, it was great times, man. And yeah, defense was the name of the game back then.
You are now leading the game in scoring with 1:46 left in the third quarter. You're leading scoring with 10 total points. Man, look at everything we see here. Is that who's number 3? That's not Al Harrington. That's Al Harrington? Oh my God, I can tell by the headband. But you know, he breaks. Look at this. He
right there too.
He gets Okur off his feet, but look who's there to help because we have a whole bunch of bodies standing there in the paint. Everything's living in the mid-range. We have not evolved yet to the point of big guys being able to stand outside the three-point line and make defenses pay for packing the paint. And it really wasn't all that long ago. We're talking 19 years that the game looked like this, and it has evolved now into guys like Andre Drummond. Imagine Ben Wallace today, Rashid, shooting threes because he would have to survive in the style, but not back then. And there's a whole bunch of carnage and rim warfare down there in the paint in the conference finals.
Hell yeah, and they let everything go because you know that's grown men basketball now. You know what I'm saying? The regular season, okay, that's for the fun to sell the tickets for the games, you know, this and that, bringing a family, hot dogs, blah, blah, blah. But yo, playoff basketball, hey, that's grown man shit right there, man. That ain't for the faint hearted right there. Because
No.
at the end of the day, I'm going for that gold ball, dog. That's my whole goal.
Yeah.
You standing in the way, and I gotta run through you, knock you over, run over you, whatever. I'm gonna get by you to get to that fucking gold ball, bro.
Back in 2004 and before that, this was before the age of the CBA now being able to pay players $40 million with mid-level exceptions, NBA 2K sponsorships. Everyone has investments in the same companies. You were compensated based on your performance for the most part. Of course, there were some players that had deals with Nike and Sprite, the Jordans of the world, but most of the guys on the floor here, they were able to put bread on the table, and I'm speaking both in terms of money and actual bread based on if we won or lost the game, which is why you got this level of intensity, because the results of which mattered so much more. And there was no holding hands and singing Kumbaya together because we're friends off the court, we're business partners, and this is all just part of that. No, it was more life
None
or
of that
death.
jersey swap shit. We didn't swap all that jersey shit after the game. Didn't take a picture. Like, no, fuck out of here. I'm trying to take your head off, dog. I apologize to your wife after. I apologize to my Duke after, but they know what it is.
What would you have said to Reggie Miller if he came over and said, "Hey, let's swap and pose for the cameras after game 1 or game 2 like this"?
No, I just looked at it. And Reggie, that's my guy. Again, Reggie Miller, that's my guy. That's my big brother. I would just look at him like he crazy, kept on walking. Now that type of shit you do when the series is over. If you want to do it on the court, when the series, that last final game, whatever it is, game 4, game 7, game 5, 6, whatever, when the series is over, okay, yeah, now we can do that. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe even if, again, off of the court during the series and my family there, your family here, we happen to bump into each other at the restaurant, yeah, you know what I'm saying? We do that because, that's all love right there. But on that hardwood, yo, nah, fuck out of here. I ain't trying to take no pictures with your ass.
I miss this. I miss this world. The early 2000s was the best time to be alive in terms of culture, technology, sports, and music, and just the way people's perspective of the world. So that is a moment.
The greatest block right here. The greatest block ever.
Oh, I forgot the chase down from Tayshaun. That's with 16 seconds left. The original LeBron chase down right there. He comes from half court on a strong side. Was that Reggie Miller? No. Oh my Lord! How deep is he in the crowd?
Oh, he gave it all out. That's what busting your ass is. Look how far he is into the crowd.
It's like 8 rows deep.
He sacrificed. That's what you call sacrificing your body right there. Because you know why? Because Tayshaun knew what was at stake right there. We can't lose this game because it's going to be a game changer in this series. Look, watch this, man. Slow mo. Watch this.
Oh, first this is
block
you
right there. Jermaine got the good block. He got the fingertip block. Boom. Right? Chauncey had got that rebound. And Chauncey tried to go back to the hole. And that's when he got it stripped. I think it was, I want to say the kid Anthony Johnson. And then that's when they kicked it to Reggie and Tayshaun came out of nowhere. And I had I still might have it somewhere in my house. I have a picture. It's from this when the NBA did the cameras from up top of the basket.
Yeah.
I have a picture to show that it wasn't goaltending. That ball is about that far away from the backboard. And you see Tayshaun's fingers on the ball. And it was just a great block. That was like, man, that was one of the greatest plays that I've ever seen in the NBA. And I was thankful to be part of it. Because, man, that was...
Can I say the quiet part out loud? And I'm only doing this because I have you to back me up. But as we watch the replay here, I kind of feel like Reggie Miller went up like a bitch there. Why didn't he go up any? That's to tie the game, and that was a practice line layup attempt.
Because look at it. When in the film, right? When they show it again, when he looked back, it's nobody in the half court with him.
Okay, all right, you're right.
There's nobody with him, and then boom! So it's like soon as he turns his head to go back and take that last dribble or two. Boom! Here comes Tayshaun out of nowhere and got that good block.
Yeah, it's easy for me to say in hindsight, playing Monday morning quarterback, he should have just punched that shit because he looks like he's getting nervous and he's slowly putting it up there, looking over his shoulder. But to your point, Tayshaun made up so much ground and this dark cloud just appears. Here you go walking off the court here saying, I told y'all, I already know what's coming out of your mouth. I told y'all, the guarantee. We'll see you in Detroit. We coming back here 3-1.
Yeah.
I know that's what's coming out of your mouth right now.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I told you motherfuckers we was gonna win this. Oh man, they hated me in Indiana doing that series, bro. Let me tell you. And look, it was almost like, man, I might have to have somebody else order food for me or some shit like that, yo. Like
Now let's fast forward to current time as the playoffs in 2023 NBA have begun. We are filming this between what is essentially the end of all the game ones in the beginning of the game twos. So I have pitched to Rashid, as opposed to going through some X's and O's stuff, just due to the turnover of how quickly these series may change on a day-to-day basis, that will kind of just touch on the major talking points here that have some more evergreen value. And I want to start with what was game one for the Warriors and the Kings and will ultimately be the same in game two, an atmosphere 16 years in the making that these fans, you texted me during the game, and I imagine it was because you wanted to inquire, like, what's it like in this place? Because you were watching it, and it was crazy. And you've played there with Portland in the past, in the playoffs. So you know all about this. They brought the cowbells back out. But, I mean, we could sit here and talk about how great the fans are. I think it's obvious at this point. And I want to credit the Kings for coming out and it not being too big of a moment. We talked about it on this show when I returned from Sacramento, and I said, I'm a little worried about this, Sheed, and I want to know, is it better playing on the road or at home in these games? Because when you're home, there is so much positive pressure to perform and not let your fans down. That what I saw against the Minnesota Timberwolves on clinch night had me worried that when they get to play a veteran team like the Warriors, that they will thrive off of that nervous energy. That was not the case for the Kings in game one, as they came straight out of the gates. So I guess, my question to you / talking point is, let's just speak specifically about Sacramento, a young team against the dynasty, against the vets with that crowd. What is your takeaways from this series just in general, and also moving forward as we progress through the 7 games?
They definitely uplifted the players. Just watching that game, it seemed like they, and when I say they, I mean the Kings went into the game with somewhat of a different swag. Just by looking at them, from the warm-ups, it seemed like they were a little bit more focused. And, of course, as you mentioned, the crowd was the crowd. The cowbells everywhere, and the decibel level was through the roof. But other than that, man, it was a great game. It was back and forth. I like De'Aaron Fox, man. The young fellas, he stepped up. Him and Sabonis, they did what they were supposed to do, did what they've been doing all season. And they stepped up to the challenge against the champs. So now we're going to see what the champs are made of. It's time for them to come out and answer that bell.
So we just spent a couple of minutes watching back your 2004 conference finals, where your words, quote, were valuing possessions. Now, I'm bringing this up because coming out of halftime, Mike Brown is interviewed by Malika Andrews on ABC. And when he's giving his thoughts about how the first half went, he said he was disappointed. Of course, all coaches say that, but he was disappointed because he wants to turn, and he's telling his guys, he wants to turn the pace up even further. This was already at this point the fastest game of the entire weekend in terms of pace, but he wanted to pour Nas onto the fire. He wanted, okay, first of all, this is crazy because ultimately this game ended with 105.5 pace, which is nearly 5 possessions greater than the averages from the regular season when they play fast already to begin with. And he said, quote, or not quote, but I'm paraphrasing, he wanted his guys to be so tired from running so much that they were asking to come out. And I find this, regardless of what happens in game 2, I find this so interesting because the Warriors, thrive in pace and space. If you want to create chaos and give them more possessions, that is more opportunities for them to figure things out. And if I would, you know what, just from a math standpoint or a philosophy standpoint, you want to limit the number of times Golden State has the ball offensively and slowing it down, because then Steph Curry can't do some ridiculous outlier shit to break that algorithm and equation.
Right.
But Mike Brown does the antithesis sheet. He says, we want to go even faster. And we really want to put the Warriors to the test from a physical standpoint that, you know what? On paper, they may thrive getting out with this pace and space shit. But if they want to run with us for 107 possessions per game at full speed, we're willing to put them to the test. So I'm kind of sitting here saying, oh my God, this is the first time I've ever heard someone say they want to fight fire with fire against the Warriors. In full circle, I guess my question back to you is, this is when the crowd energy actually helps the Kings, because they're running on adrenaline. And if they really want to push the pace to the point that they're about to fall over and die, that crowd may get you to the finish line as opposed to being on the road, because you're thriving with all of that. Again, just adrenaline going through your body. The Kings never let up. So that home court did play advantage to them. That's just my thoughts. What about you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then here's the other thing that we can't forget. Mike Brown knows something we don't. Why? He's been with them for the last so-and-so years. You know, he has a couple championship rings with that team, with that main core of guys, with Steph, Draymond, and Clay. That main core of guys, he has a championship with them. So pretty much, you know, he knows that team in and out. So I would have to give that slight advantage to Sacramento from the coaching standpoint, you know, because now, granted, Mike used to be a head coach before, but Steve, you know, might not know what he's going to run. You know, I might run some old shit. I might run some new shit. I don't know. But Mike Brown got a feeling and knows more of the things that he's going to run and how to combat that. So that's what makes it a good series. And then on top of, as you mentioned, the adrenaline with the fans. You know, when you're sitting on the bench tired, the fans are still rowdy. You know, like the fan behind you might be tired a little bit, but it's still 37,000 other ones that's cowbell doing everything to get you pumped. And so when you check into the game, when you know that buzzer sound and coach call you check into the game, you know, you hear the fan, all right, come on, let's go. We got to get this. We got to do that now. Come on. You know, you hear everybody's input and opinion and all. So it's great. It's great because, again, that's what uplifts the players, especially when you're a young player, first time in the playoffs, and you're playing against a veteran team like Golden State. I mean, yeah, it's definitely uplifting when you got your fans behind you like that.
Two disciples of the Rasheed Wallace Academy. I'm making them your students, whether you like it or not. Jaren Jackson Jr. and, well, you know what? Let's go with three. Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., two young guys who are long, tall wingspans, can stretch the floor from three, both of which had question marks coming into their respective series. And I do think they both performed at opposite ends of the report card, if you will. Jaren Jackson Jr. was on a team that lost in game one, but we talked about how your recommendations you gave on the last show. How can Jaren Jackson Jr. stay out of foul trouble? He can't be on the floor in the regular season for more than 30 minutes because he has 6 fouls. How the hell is he supposed to do it for 40? Well, in this very first game against the great Anthony Davis, he doesn't commit a single foul for the first 16 minutes. I think it went as far as 20-something before the first personal foul was recorded. He was awesome, stretching the floor. The last line of defense, he delivered. But on the contrary, you have someone who's a very similar build with a very similar type of game that is supposed to influence every possession above and below the rim on both ends in Evan Mobley. And he gets out Evan Mobleyed by Mitchell Robinson, who is, you know, this is known as the Block Ness Monster. And Evan Mobley is made to look really mortal really quickly, unlike anything we've seen this season. You know, the Cavs defense, man, was the first rated defense in the entire league for a significant portion of the season. And that is it's not because Mitchell and Garland are such a great offensive dynamic backcourt. It's because they have those two anchors in the paint, and one man made them look mortal. So those two specifically, Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson Jr., I'm kind of curious as to just your thoughts about them, either how they can improve or retain their success moving forward in these series.
For JJ, he just got to do the same things that he did in game one. He went out there. He was aggressive in game one. He tried to get Anthony Davis in foul trouble. He tried to get Bron in foul trouble for the beginning of the game. Bron was guarding for the first couple possessions, and so he was real aggressive. He rebounded well, and he played a good game. I mean, as we said, he did his part. It just is unfortunate that, of course, the main character in the show, Ja, got hurt. And once he went down, it was like, all right, well, shit. He's Jaren Jackson. He's a good player, but he's a cast member. He's not quite yet a leading actor. He's a cast member, so he couldn't rally the troops to get over that hump. And I think Lakers, being the veteran team that they are, once Ja went down, they smelled blood in the water like sharks, and just put that pedal to the metal and went full throttle.
All right. So moving forward here, I've made the point, or I've made the case that I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is the most irreplaceable player on that team, including Ja Morant, because of what he does on both ends, and especially without Steven Adams and Brandon Clark there. The entire weight of the world is on his shoulders to keep Anthony Davis from morphing and evolving into basketball Godzilla. He did a pretty damn decent job of it in game one, but they still lost. So if you're going to lose after a big Triple J game like that, where he's able to stay on the floor, it's got to be a little demoralizing. And then on the Los Angeles side, I want to get your thoughts on Austin Reaves. In the fourth quarter, from the beginning of the period through 109 remaining in the fourth, the 109 mark is where it started to turn into a blowout, and I wasn't really including those as a part of the analysis of the quarter. But from 12 minutes to 109, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are responsible for only 3 points scored or assisted. They had their hands only in 3 points. And in a very close game, the Lakers, during that time period, were not only able to come out net zero and hold their 6-point lead, they grew it by 2 points. The Lakers end up 8 by the time we get to the end of the fourth, and that's because Mr. I'm Him out there screaming around. You've got Anthony Davis and LeBron setting up Austin Reaves with screens and isolation to get him open. You played when LeBron was coming up in the league. I'm not making comparisons to Reaves and LeBron, but how shocking was it for you to see LeBron and AD defer to someone else and say, you know what, you got this, man? That's a level of trust I haven't seen in quite some time with him.
Well, 2 things. One, I want to go back to your comment with Evan Mobley and how he's helped anchor down with Jared Allen that Cleveland defense, as you said, that was number 1 or in the top 3 defenses throughout the season. But again, they're going to have to come up with more firepower, or they're going to have to be more aggressive, because yes, Mitch Robinson, I think Mitch had a big game because they're not looking at Mitch. He's in the scouting report as far as like, okay, we know Mitch going to block some shots. That's it. They're not expecting Mitch to score. So Mitch scored a couple buckets, had a couple good putbacks, couple dunks, and that was the type of small little buckets that helped get them over. With him tipping it out, getting that extra possession for the guards, and boom, that's basic basketball. And then to fast forward to your question about with AR-15, as I heard a couple of guys in the crowd call him, Austin Reaves, he had a great game. And LeBron and AD did what they were supposed to do. You got to feed the hot hand. You got to feed the hot hand. I don't care who it is. You're out there on that floor. It's not always going to be that superstar that carries you over in every playoff game. There's going to be other moments where guys going to have to step up. And AR-15 stepped up for them in game 1. You know what I'm saying? He did what he was supposed to do. He complimented Batman and Superman. You know what I'm saying? So now he did his thing as the Green Arrow. We're going to call him the Green Arrow because he's a sharpshooter. So he did his thing. And, I mean, it's nothing bad you can say about it. I guess for the Grizzlies, they have to find a way now. You got to include that into your scouting report and step up on that. You got to worry about that along with Batman and Superman with, AD and LeBron. So the Grizzlies going to have to do something.
Yeah,
I'm all right, too.
Yeah, I mean, just if you're a basketball fan in general, you're rooting for Ja Morant to be on the floor because he provides entertainment, let alone being a special talent. While you were giving your answer, I was thinking, when was the last time LeBron willingly deferred? Now, granted, this is game 1 of a first round series. It's not game 6 of the finals. But back in 2010, I remember Heat fans and LeBron fans were a little critical of LeBron because he was too unselfish, allowing Dwayne Wade to run the team against the Mavericks because it was the Miami Heat was his franchise at the time. I'm sure there are examples between then and now in which LeBron has been like, you know what, you got this, and I'll be over here in case you need me. But it's not popular that this occurs, and for Reaves to deliver as well as Rui. Shout out to Rui. The two of them together were able to fulfill all that was needed in the void that was left by AD and LeBron not being those high usage guys that the Lakers have relied on now for many years. Another game and another situation that I want to ask your opinion on is fourth quarter of the Suns versus the Clippers. We have, coming out of the huddle, Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant guarding each other at both ends. There was no Torrey Craig, Josh Okogie, or, we're going to put our second. No, it was Kawhi, KD, licking their hands. When you go to the bottom of your soles on your shoes, you're doing that's the equivalent of a bull, winding up by taking their hooves and digging into the dirt. The two of them were coming out and saying, we got each other here. That was entertaining as all hell. You also had Jalen Brunson versus Donovan Mitchell in the Knicks versus the Cavs going shot for shot. I mean, some really high difficulty playoff only attempts that just did not miss what felt like an eternity. And I guess I want to ask you whether you were involved in a one-on-one face-off like this during the postseason. There is going to be these instances where stars get the ball 15 feet away from the rim with 8 seconds left on the shot clock. That is not enough time to be running flex or horns or any of these plays that we discuss. It's your star's got the ball. He's going to turn and face, and he's got to do something with it. So how do you, either as it's obvious at that point, if you're the one with the ball, you got to go get buckets. But if you are standing on the other side of the court and you're in the corner waiting for that kick pass, if the defense were to collapse, how do you make yourself useful and efficient other than just having a front row seat to the show?
Everybody's there for a reason. All right. If you think about an NBA team, okay, so you got a lot of young players out here now who wants to make the big money, like, LeBron and KD and all our big name megastars here in the NBA. Okay, they're already here. They're already getting paid $30 and $40 million a year to do that. So advice to a lot of the younger guys trying to make the NBA, try to play some defense. Go on the defensive side of things. It's easier because now it'll help. Because a lot of teams need what? A wing defender or a big man / post defender. So that's I would say that's the first part with that, right? To make sure that you have that. Then when you sit back and look at it, it's like, it's what it is. That's the simplest way for me to put it. It's what it is. It's what you paid to see. That's the type of shit you pay to see all year when you got your two mega stars going at it. No matter if it's shot for shot the whole game or, the last couple of possessions in the fourth quarter. That's what you paying to see. That's what you're on the edge of your seat. Like, damn, now they going at it. This is playoff basketball. And for me, I would say during my career, I've had shot-for-shot games, regular season big games, and playoff big games against, I would say my biggest ones was against Jermaine O'Neal when I was with Detroit. And when I was with Portland, it was going against KG and Tim Duncan. So we knew what was at stake during the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? It was just so fucked up that at that time, 3 out of the 4 top power forwards in the league is in the West Coast.
So let me follow up with this by putting you in a similar situation, and whether you're on the ball or not, let's use the Kings again, just as our lightning rod for this conversation in particular. Right. That you have a crowd that is so loud that you can't hear a word that your coach, let alone your teammates, the guy bringing the ball up the court, is saying. You can just see the way that their mouth is moving, but it's the magnitude of the moment just makes it impossible to communicate. How do you guys have hand signals like you are a third base coach in baseball and you're going like this means screen, this means you rub your chin, that's come off me, or are you tapping your hip if you want to set a pick and slip or a pick and roll, or is, I guess that's just a way of me asking you, do you have this language, this nonverbal communication language that you establish before a game like this begins? Is that something you practice? Is that something you've had all season? Because it sure as hell looks like the Warriors and the Kings, for every time a game is played in this series, aren't able to say anything to each other unless it's in a super tight huddle between whistles. Can you take me through that?
Well, in the beginning of the game, you have the first 2-3 plays are set. So then, you go out, you just execute them. But when you are in the middle of that game and it's that possession happening and, the crowd is going frantic, it's all hand signals.
We could do the whole show like it if you'd like.
Yeah,
try to communicate to each other.
So you got horns, up or horns down, you got fist up or fist side. You know what I'm saying? You got 2 curl, 3 curl. It's one of the things that was a favorite play for KG that they had to run. Again, all hand signals was, and we knew what that was when we went 4-5-2. It's 452 twist. We knew the ball was going to KG. So you definitely have your hand signals. And then so when you have dead ball action, the guys should come together on a court if it's not a timeout. You know what I'm saying? If it's like, how sometimes they BS with the ball, and so you come together for a quick one like, hey, look, we're going to run this 32 flat. All right, bet. So now when you go back down on offense, you know what it is. And then the same on defense. You already know what your defensive principles are. So if it is, even in your own book, for your building, it's going to be loud. So you might not hear me yell, screen, pick left. You might not hear it. So what we used to do was break the court down. So if your man is on a certain angle, you got to force him to the baseline. Force him to the sideline, excuse me. If he in the middle, straight up, we're going to force him to his weak hand. Or to the weak hand he likes to drive. Because some left-handed players like to drive right. And some right-handed players like to drive left or drive left better than they do driving right. So, as you're doing your homework with these players, you know which way to send them. And you just got to know that, hey, my brother is going to be there. If it's calling for me to push him to the sideline and this pick and roll, because we're going to trap, we're going to read it, we're going to, on defense, we're going to fist it, then that's what it is. You gotta be there for your brothers, man.
This is such a testament to team defense being a team mentality, philosophy, and execution. You can have the defensive player of the year on the team, but if you're shading a guy the wrong way to his weak hand instead of his strong hand, and then he's just going to get a layup regardless of how good you are at defense. That by listening to you say that now, I'm thinking the best defenses in the NBA today, dating back to your Pistons squads, they probably had the best nonverbal communication, always knowing that my guy's going to be there because, one, we've practiced this. We've done it so many times during the season that the number of lapses that occur, you don't even need to call the action because, again, you may not even be able to hear it. And can we agree that it's different than the sport of football? When an audible, you hear like check, 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 and then you go to you see the quarterback on the road going to each individual lineman and telling them the play, and then he's making motions to the wide receivers like slant to you or whatever the motion for a hook would be. They have to do all that with each, but in basketball, in basketball you don't necessarily have that time. So. Again, bringing up that example of shading someone towards the baseline, if the Pistons players know that my guy's over there on an island by himself, and I already know before the ball is caught by the opponent that Tayshaun is going to force him baseline. Therefore, I need to have myself standing on the opposite block in a position that I can step in before he gets to the rim. because you already knew Tayshaun's pushing in towards the baseline. This is a very simple concept, but how many teams do we see with a whole bunch of great individual defenders fail to play high-level defense because they're pointing at each other all the time? I thought that was you. I thought we were supposed to switch. Then the coach calls timeout. Everyone's all pissed off. You got guys going like this. They start punching each other in the huddle like we saw in Minnesota. They have great defenders there, and yet they have lapses too. So this is what's fascinating to me is you don't necessarily need the headline defenders. It helps in terms of talent, but if you have a unit that knows each other's moves and doesn't even need to communicate through voice, you can do it through basketball telepathy. That to me, Sheed, sounds like the best defense in the league.
And it's simple because it starts with just regular communication. Like one thing with a lot of the point guards I played with, Damon Stoudemire, Lindsey Hunter, Mike James, Chauncey, Rod Strickland, Kenny Anderson, Mark Price, Brent Price, Robert Pack, just a few of the point guards that I played with in this game. One thing that they all liked about me was I'm yelling down the court. So now you could be in your man. You could be right there playing defense on your man. Depending on the defensive scheme that we're in, you could be right there playing defense on your man the whole 94 feet, opposing to slacking off because now you keep going like this or you don't know what's behind you. It could be a screen. So you're like, all right, I'm going to just play defense at half court. No, I'm letting you know, like you by yourself, D up because some cats' handles wasn't like that. I could take that candy for that leg. You know what I mean? So now I'm going to let you know what's going on. But when, as you mentioned, it's a deafening crowd, that point guard, he knows. He knows that I'm going to be there. He knows that, hey, look, I know Sheed back there. He's not going to let this dude get to the rim. That was our main focus. We told Chauncey, we told all our wing perimeter players, look, y'all play them for the jump shot. We got your help on the drive. So if you give him a contested jump shot, nothing open, don't worry about it. If he get by you, don't worry about it. You just keep coming because he's going to pull up for this jump shot. So you playing for the jump shot because there was a very few times that they came in because Ben was going to get that shit up out of there or I was going to get that shit up out of there. But that was our whole defensive scheme when I was playing with Detroit. Y'all play them for the jump shot. We got your help on the drive. Interesting.
And you know what that results a lot in, I would think? Pull up contested mid-range jump shots because they are going to pull up before the Wallaces are waiting for you down in the paint. And if you want to shoot some shit that's outside the arc in front of whoever's locking you down, those are your options. And if a defense can force you into the inefficient contested mid-range, if they're going to make it, you tip your hat and you move on and you play defense again the following possession. Another playoff concept I want to ask you about, and this is more of just your personal opinion because I think everyone is different. We saw two examples of it in opening weekend of this year's playoffs. Rest versus rust. You have the Phoenix Suns who looked, honestly, a little lazy. I mean, they look as healthy as they've ever been. They hadn't played a competitive game in a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. They come out and the Clippers, needing this game won above all without Paul George on the floor, kind of had that bloodlust, and they didn't. And as a result, the Suns had to come back from behind. But on the contrary, you've got the Denver Nuggets, who haven't played a competitive game in 2.5 weeks, even almost double. And they come out and blow the doors off the Minnesota Timberwolves, who had just gone through the grind of the play-in tournament. They had played 2 games in the last 4 days. They show up to Denver, and because Denver was able to match that type of energy plus some, blew them out of the gym. So coming full circle here, I want to ask you, did you, approaching the playoffs, or you had a long layoff between the end of the conference finals through the finals, which sometimes could be a full week, do you prefer that time off to get your body right? Or are you the type of guy that needs to be in the gym every other day because you need the practice and to stay in rhythm? It's two schools of thought, but I would love to hear from you.
Man, wow, that's a good one. To be honest, it's all on how your team feel and how they playing at that moment. Let's just say a team for their last 15 games going into the playoffs, they were like 12-3. You know what I'm saying? 13-2. So you want to ride that wave. You don't going into the playoffs, you really don't want that time off because y'all clicking, everybody's clicking on offense, everybody's got it together on defense. Your point guard's doing good, your bigs is rebounding, everybody's playing well. So sometimes a long 10-year break like that, it might throw you off a little bit. But then on the flip side of it, if you look at certain teams, let's take the Clippers for example. Shit, they've been hurt all damn year, even now to this day. So with them, they took advantage of that time that Phoenix had off. And they're Phoenix is a little bit rusty coming out, missing some shots they would normally make. So now it's like, okay, we fucked up game one, but we didn't get like dumb blown out. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to come back game two, hit these shots, and we're going to start running a little bit more, a little bit better, and get back into that competitive edge. So I guess it all depends on how that team is playing and how they're rolling. Like I said, you're going into the playoffs and you're on a roll, your team is playing great, everybody's clicking. You don't really want to break that up. You're like, all right, we can rest, after the playoffs or after this round is over, but it can go either way. And it doesn't matter if it's a young team or old team because it's all on the philosophy of that coach.
All right, so it's a play it by ear. We'll see where the state of the team is, how they're feeling, and you know what? If the team wants to keep going out there and grinding, then it sounds like rust means more than rest in this case. So let's use this to segue to our final segment of the program. It is called Respect the Game, and this is the part of the show where Rashid educates us on a player that may or may not get the respect that the man deserves. We've heard names like Corliss Williamson. We have heard Clyde Drexler. Willis Reed was one as well, but she'd spent a lot of time in the NBA playing against a lot of different guys. And especially if you're a younger audience member watching this, you may not even just know they existed. So I love to have Sheed come in here and preach to you all a little bit. So I will ask, who is today's Respect the Game character?
Ooh, hey, so here's a good one. So we're gonna do it since it's Phoenix is playing tonight. I'm gonna go with my guy here. I respect the player of the game today. It's Kevin Johnson. Yes, Kevin Johnson, University of California. He was the 7th pick overall in the 87 draft to the Cavaliers. He played a 12-year NBA career. Most of it was in Phoenix, where he got a lot of highlights. He's most infamous for his dunk over Mark Eaton. I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but Mark Eaton was, what was he, Wob? 7'3", 7'4", something like that.
He was on Utah at the time, right?
Utah. Yeah. Yep. He was a center for the Utah Jazz, and Kevin Johnson, 6'1", went up and dunked over him. And, hung on the rim and everything like that. But he had a fantastic NBA career as a 2-time NBA All-Star. He won Most Improved Player one year. But to signify his career, to signify what type of person and player he was, he's just as known in, believe it or not, Sacramento for who he is. Kevin Johnson ended up being a 2-time mayor. That's right, mayor of Sacramento. So that's his political role. He also runs an organization called St. Hope, which is the after-school program for kids. And, he's been running that, what is this, 23? So I guess the last 15, 16 years, he's been doing that in that Sacramento area. He's done a lot of positive things for the neighborhood, for the NBA. I guess he can be one of the shining stars or the shining moments. One of the players never got in trouble throughout his career. And of course, again, couldn't get in trouble with him being in politics. But Kevin Johnson, man, I think he was a hell of a ball player. Went to the University of Cal. He was a hell of a ball player, man, and great jump shot, great athlete. And that's today's respect the player. Respect the game player, I should say.
Respect the game with Rasheed Wallace today. It is Kevin Johnson. Sacramento, Phoenix know him quite well. For this episode of That's What Sheed Said, that's Roscoe Rasheed Wallace, Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob. We will see you Same time, same place, next week with a whole bunch of new topics and possible eliminations to recap and discuss. Sheed will be doing his little dance. Just imagine him when the light goes off. He'll be sitting in that same chair doing that dance until we go live again next week waiting for it.
Yes,
but until then,
yes,
we will see y'all
games
on the timeline.
I hope y'all teams win because it's going to be some good ones out here this week.